later on recordings.
Greetings, fellow Empyreans. I am Ashtarothi, and as we wind up this CSM season and enter into the voting phase, I want to talk just a little bit about my thoughts on the CSM, our candidates, and kind of where we've been and where we're going. First of all, the CSM, for those of you who don't know, was formed during a very troubled time between CCP and the EVE player base. It had been racked by internal incidents. There was cries of foul play, both between players and with the company. And through this, they had to restructure a bunch of stuff. And part of that was the formation of this Council of Stellar Management, which was supposed to be one part focus group, one part PR tool. Nobody was quite sure what it was supposed to do, but it was a way for the players to vote on who would be their voice. Over the years, what is and isn't the CSM has changed. Famously, CSM 6 became the War CSM that oversaw kind of Monocle Gate and the Summer of Rage, and kind of one of the darkest moments of EVE modern history. And I think that the CSM really solidified its tool as mediator between CCP and the player base, as well as kind of like a bit of assurance to us and to CCP that they can communicate things effectively, that we can understand what they're trying to do effectively. And I think that the whole thing is very valuable. Now, its value has changed. In particular, in the last couple of years, the CSM has come under a lot of question of what is its potential. I would say that for the first at least half of the CSM's existence, it has been trying to fight for validity. And then it got its validity. It became a stakeholder status in a couple of things. They finally convinced CCP devs to take them seriously. And then we had some major concerns. There was a series of conflicts in which there was a question of, can we give the CSM power? Can we trust these guys that have been asked to be trusted? Does the NDA provide a real protection in the sandbox world, where CSM members may need to, may leak information, may try to disguise the fact that they're leaking information, and may contaminate the sandbox? There's questions of whether or not the CSM should even exist. And then we've gotten this last year, and they have gone into this, I think, with probably the most doubts of their own effectiveness of any CSM. In other words, last year was one of the lowest voter turnouts. There's a huge campaign to suppress the value of the CSM in people's eyes. And there's a lot of questions, myself included, as to whether or not the CSM was going to even continue to exist, whether or not there would be a CSM 12. And CSM 11 really had to answer that question, and they stepped up and did it. From everything I've talked to, every single person I've talked to has never even suggested that there's a trouble under the surface or anything like that. The CCP seems extremely happy with the CSM. The CSM has conducted themselves in a really great way. There are definitely criticisms. One could say that their updates were not as flashy as previous years. Jintan has been providing weekly updates, but I know that some people have found themselves disconnected from the CSM, even though I think that the CSM has actually gone pretty far in trying to connect themselves using our newer tools like Discord and Slack and all these kinds of things that we have. So as we navigate in this kind of gaming sphere, the CSM is a super valuable tool, both as a means of communication with CCP, but also as just a fun mechanic of our game, right? Space politics, vote them in, take them to, they get to go to Iceland and see what's going on. I think that is one of the things that makes EVE pretty cool. Maybe not exactly unique, but pretty close to unique. I think that's super valuable. So I have talked to a bunch of candidates. I've read some of the things. I haven't actually given everybody their fair shake because there's over 60 candidates. But I can say that my top blocks and who they're going to be. My number one position is going to be Steve Ronikin. Basically, he's got my top position as long as he wants to run, because I believe that a vibrant third-party development system not only pushes forward our current game, but also challenges CCP and presents CCP with ideas of how to deal with various stuff. So if we don't like the UI and people make third-party tools in order to fix certain problems, well, maybe they'll just bring it in someday. Kind of like the new fitting tools takes a lot of the stuff that we learned about what people want from fitting tools like PIFA. And I think that he's conducted himself in a very fair and balanced way, and kind of represents a cornerstone in my eyes of the current CSM. Other people may disagree, but as I've said, as long as Steve wants a number one position, he absolutely has it for me. I think that he's the one that I would say needs to be on the CSM the most of all the ones that are up for grabs. My number 2, I give to Silas Black, the faction warfare candidate of Templars. He went into his interview, and I straight up warned him that, I had one question in mind, which is, can you convince me you will represent me and not my enemy? And that's a very fair question to ask. And I liked the fact that I got to be on the defending side of that. But either way, long story short, I was very impressed with his interview. I hadn't really talked to him beforehand, but he gave all the right answers, and he sounds like he not only understands the complexity of the problem ahead of him, but he at least has a good bearing as to what tools and what steps it'll take to be able to navigate through this interesting problem of being a faction warfare representative on the CSM. So of all of the people that stepped up and said that they wanted to be a faction warfare representative, or even a low-sec representative, he's the guy that convinced me the most that he can do it. So there you go. He's got my number 2 position. My number 3 position is Jintan. Jintan is another one of those cornerstones. Honestly, if I thought there was any concern with him being reelected, he would be probably above Silas, because his value to the game, his perspective to the game. He's been playing this game since he was like 13, I think. The perspective that it brings in being a kid that has grown up at nursing on what is Eve causes him to fight with a passion that I've never seen in an Eve player. And so that dude's a champion among men. My number 4 slot is Kale Decadence. He is a fellow podcaster. I think that media is super important in the CSM. I think that having people who understand how to communicate, Jintan is excellent. Having more people who can be media personality, but not necessarily have their media personality be the thing that they're pushing on the CSM is important. I think that Kale can really do that. So he gets my number 4 slot. My 5, 6, and 7 slot would be the high-sec coalition that formed, Rodent, Commander A's, and Toxic. Because I really like that idea. These are guys who said that high-sec needs representation enough that all 3 of them want to go in on every ticket that any of them are on, and so that way they can at least get somebody. And with only 10 slots, I think that that's an incredibly smart move, so I threw them in there. And then my final one is Kalen Siro. I think that he did a really good job in his interview. I was surprised by a lot of the people that I interviewed. I tried to challenge each of them and also kind of find the heart of their value to me if they were to be elected, because they're all really smart and they took the time to talk to me. And Kalen stood out as being a very bright guy and somebody I was interested in having on the CSM. And at that point, after that, I figured that I'm pretty sure my vote will be consumed. So I'm running it safe on that as my block. So, but that's what I've got. I would really appreciate it if you guys in the comments below say who you're voting for. Are you going to vote for Steve like me? Are you going to vote for Bobmon? Are you going to vote for Zenoria? And why? So, yep, let me know, and I will see you next time.